You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to the Ashley Burgess podcast. The loss of a pet to some people is just that. It's the loss of a pet. But for some people, it's a family member. For some, a child. Especially when people do not have children. Their dog is their child. And I believe that more and more people from around the world are choosing not to have children for various reasons. And this is becoming even more common. The connection that a person has with their dog, if they choose to, and they take the time and they do everything they need to do, is strong and it's powerful. But it takes work, just like any other relationship, just like a marriage, just like a friendship, just like raising a child. It takes work. It takes consistency. It takes time. And Buddy has been with me forever. I love Buddy. He's been with me for 15 solid years. And he is my child. And it's interesting when you look at the situation, and I have friends that have children, and they love their dogs. I'm not saying that they don't love their dogs, but it's a different type of love. And I think everybody out there listening right now understands. It's like, hey, you know, when you have a dog, or for many people, a cat, doesn't matter. That animal is not only a family member, but it is one of the most important family members. And I was telling a friend of mine the other day, we've been great friends, best friends actually, for a very long time. We've known each other since middle school. And he has 2 kids and 2 dogs. And he said, hey, when something happens to Buddy, you'll know. And I said, I will. I said, but it's really hard because I think a lot of times when we have kids, the dogs, the pets take, the back seat, which I guess I can see that. And I said, and when you don't have children, it's really a different story. It's like putting, your firstborn, putting them in the grave. It's not an easy situation. And I find it interesting because I think it's something that we haven't really talked about. It's something that we don't necessarily embrace. It's something that's hard to bring up. It's something that's hard to give credence to. And I know that many of you have dogs. You're a dog lover. Many of you have a dog, and that dog is your child. And you care very much about that dog. And I know that many of you have lost dogs, and it has been heart-wrenching and painful and challenging. And it has been hard to talk with other people, hard to have that connection. And I find it interesting because that is a real challenge. I think that's something in our society deems the fact that that's a pet, and so it's not as important, which I find completely inappropriate and completely wrong. And so on today's podcast, I really wanted to talk about that. I want to talk about the sincerity of an animal, the quality of an animal, the Christ energy of a dog in specific, and how many of you have connected with that dog in your life. And I guess this is a kudos to you, a connection with you, because I think many of us are out there where you're taking your dog everywhere. Maybe you take your dog to work every day. You give your dog, a car ride all the time, taking them on walks, tucking them in, fixing their food, everything all the time. And a lot of people don't give you kudos for that. They don't, oh, wow, because it's not a kid. And it's not so deemed normalized in our society. And so for all you that are doing that, I want to pat you on the back. You're doing an excellent job. And I think that we owe ourselves that. But one of the most challenging situations is when a dog is not doing well, when their body is giving out, when their body is getting in the way of us continuing this amazing friendship, this amazing connection, this amazing family, this amazing love. And I just recently had that happen. Yesterday, I had to experience that on a massive level. And I realized that, unfortunately, my best friend's body was giving out. My best friend in all the world, who I saw every day, who I hung out with every day, who I spent time with every day, couldn't do it anymore because he was in pain. And that was hard. And I think that, it was nice to be surrounded at our vet clinic that we go to and we've been going to for a long time. It's the only vet that Buddy's ever known. And Dolce knew the same vet. And everybody was there with us. And it was definitely opposite from the way that my previous dog had to pass. It was a very challenging night with him. It was horrible. We had this great day though. Dolce and I had this great day, his last day when he was in that body, to go do stuff. We had fun. We drove everywhere. We did all kinds of things. We went everywhere. We did everything. He had a hamburger. He had ice cream, all kinds of stuff, And we thought we were going to do good. We thought we were going to be able to get through that night, maybe get through another night. And it didn't happen. And my veterinarian was out of town. He was out of town. And even though, it's after midnight, but at the same point, him being in town would have been more of a comfort. And so it was about 1 a.m. and we headed over to the emergency clinic. And Buddy was very, very sick. He was throwing up blood at that time. It started about an hour and a half before. We were just trying everything, just if there's anything we can do. So we get over to the emergency clinic, and within about an hour, Dolce was no longer in his body. He had moved on. But we were sitting on that floor, on that concrete floor in a room that was somewhat dark with people we didn't know. And it was really, really hard. And yesterday, it's interesting because, again, my vet went out of town. And it was very triggering. He was telling me 10 days before, I'm going to be going out of town on this trip. And I got really triggered. And obviously for an obvious reason, because I knew what was coming down the pike. And I think many of us know when things are coming down the pike, when things are changing, when things are augmenting. And you can see, and there's weight loss, and there's food changes, and there's breathing issues. And we did some scans and some things like that. And we knew we had something, but we didn't go as far as to get a CAT scan. We got to the oncologist a few days ago, and they wanted to do a CAT scan, and they had to intubate him, which I didn't want to do because he was already having some breathing issues, and he was already tired. He had some difficulty sleeping the night before, and I just wanted to, take care of him and be there for him because it matters. And they said we can also do a biopsy, but we would have to put him under anesthesia to do that. And I didn't want to do that to him either because I said, okay, let's get him better. Let's get him feeling better. Let's get him more comfortable. Let's get him in a place where he can go through these tests and it's not going to be so painful. We did a few blood tests on top of the previous ones that we did. We got some prescriptions as far as two pills to take, and we went home. And, I realized, I was like, okay, I'm going to put this off for a little while as far as these tests because, I knew that he had to get better. He had to eat more. We had been eating so well and things had been going good. We had some ups and downs throughout the last few months, but things had been very solid. I had gotten into I was like literally a cook. I was a constant cook. So I cooked in the morning, cooked in the evening. I was cooking him burgers. He was eating pumpkin. I was going to the Whole Foods. I was making eggs when he didn't want to eat that, scrambled or over easy or, it was a gamut. Whatever I thought he wanted, we went for it. We finally got, into a rhythm over multiple times. But then we went to the oncologist, and the night before we were okay. That night we ate, and I hadn't had a burger in about 20 years. Yes, I don't eat it, and I wasn't really looking forward to it, but I knew that if he was going to eat, it was going to be off my plate. So I remember I made two actual sliders, just with the roll, the Hawaiian roll, and I put a little mayo on mine and none on his, and so I put them both on one plate, and I took one bite out of mine and I said, oh, please, God, don't give me dysentery. Oh, please, God. But I said, I'm doing this for a reason. So I handed him a bite and he ate it. We sat there by the couch and he sat on the floor because he didn't feel good enough to sit on the couch. And so I fed him and I ate and he watched me eat. Then he took another bite. He watched me eat and he took another bite. And he ate that burger and we ate together. And I was like, and I heard my stomach going, roar, but I still went with it because I knew it was the right thing to do. The next day things were okay, but I had, explained to my husband and my family, I said, I think we just need to focus on the fact that we don't know how long he's going to be here in this body. We need to be aware. And I have been trying to do as much as I could. Been trying to do as much as I could to take care of, to be there for him, in his time of need, because he deserves it. He's my best friend. And so I wanted to make sure morning, noon, and night, moving the bed around that he could sleep in, that he was able to lay in. I moved it from upstairs to downstairs, from downstairs to the office, from the office to downstairs, from downstairs to the upstairs, in constant formation. That had been going on for a very long time, making sure that he's constantly comfortable. And he looked great. I mean, we were constantly spending time. The walks got shorter. His ability to move around got shorter, but then eventually he stopped really eating. I tried everything. Salmon to beef to buffalo to anything you can possibly think of, baby food, even mac and cheese. The last food that Buddy ate was some mac and cheese that I got at Whole Foods. And I knew, I've never fed my dog cheese, certainly not macaroni. But I had just bought some because I went and bought some smart things for him that he didn't want to eat. He had no desire to eat. Not one thing that I bought for him, not one thing. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to stick the fork in that macaroni and I'm going to hand him some. I'm going to and he certainly ate it. And so he ate the macaroni. And I was wondering, maybe I should get some more. It's interesting. When the rest of the family got home late that night, they tried to feed him again. Didn't work. We tried to make some macaroni. That didn't work. Went and got the macaroni from the same place. No go. I knew that he wasn't feeling good. I knew that Buddy, the eater of all eaters, the prognosticators of prognosticators, if he's not eating, he's not doing well. And he put up a good show. When you look at him and the pictures that I have from literally 3 hours before we had to let him out of his body, you would never believe it. It's like getting ready and looking your best, getting in the car and never coming back home. And that's so hard. It's so hard because you don't even think about that. We were going to go to the vet yesterday morning for a shot, for a shot to try to, help open up his lungs and help him to breathe better, and also hoping that this shot would help him to eat some more. And so I was looking forward to it. I had a couple of sessions with some clients early on in the morning, and I said, hey, I'd already called everybody, said I'll be there about 11 o'clock. And, I told Buddy, I was like, hey, we're going to go to the vet. We're going to get this shot. Then we're going to go in the car. We're going to drive around. And I already had an idea of having a party for all his friends on Saturday. A party of a celebration while he's still alive, while he's still with us in this body. I was like, this will be a great idea. He's got so many friends. I said, hey, on Facebook, anybody that wants to visit Buddy, today or tomorrow, let me know, because let's do it. He wants to see his friends. And so I was like, you know what we're going to do is we're going to do that. We're going to drive around, do some errands. We're going to pick up some stuff for the party. I wanted to pick up some CBD oil and see if that might help him. I had a friend of mine checking up on that CBD oil. All this stuff was going on. We had lots of things in the mix. We had a day planned. We had a big day planned of activities in the car and getting stuff done. So I got him in the car, got him in the back seats. He's smiling. Things are good. We drive to the vet's office, which we've gone a million times. And, and spent lots of money. And I know many of you are definitely understand what I'm saying. It's part of it, right? People talk about, oh, I can't believe that dog costs that. It's like, well, the cost of that dog is only going to go up 100,000 times with all the vet bills and all the health stuff and the food and everything, but we do a lot of things for our pets. We care about them. They're our family member. They're not our pets. For some of them, they're our child. And so we get there, and as we pull in, I look down, at the clock on the car, and I realize it's 11:11. And I was like, huh. And I don't know if any of y'all think about numerology or anything, but I was like, that's an interesting number. I'm hoping we're just going in for the shot. Just want to get a shot and head back out. Maybe we'll get back out, head out. And it's interesting when I look back, I know it's been a little bit more than 24 hours, but when I look back, I couldn't think past getting out of that car. I couldn't think past it. I couldn't think about anything else. I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and we were talking, and I said, "Hey, I got to get Buddy out of the car and put you on speakerphone." So I'm picking him up, putting him down, getting his little leash on, and we're heading in to the vet's office. And I remember we were walking, everything was good, and then all of a sudden, Buddy started slowing down. And I understood. I slowed down and I tried to help out and I tried to move him a little bit. Then he slowed down even more. And there was a lady that was looking and she goes, "Oh, yeah, I hope, you got it, little boy. You got it, little boy." And I remember she was super cute. And I was trying to, we were going. But then he got real slow. And then we got to the front of the door and he started circling. He started doing circles. And then he fell out. I grabbed him right before he hit the ground. And as we walked in the door and I'm holding him and everybody looked at me and asked if I'm okay, I said, "No, he needs help." They grabbed him, took him immediately into the back where the ER is, They put me in a room and I was very sad and very scared. And I sat there and waited for them to come and get me. And multiple people came in that I knew. And I was happy to see them, but I was scared. And I said, "I want to see Buddy." And they said, "You'll see Buddy. You'll see Buddy. Don't worry. You'll see him. We'll come get you in a little bit. You'll see him. Don't worry. We just got to get him calm." And another person came in and asked what kind of medication he had. I said, "He hasn't had anything today. Last night he had one of the pills that they gave me to give him." And then the next person said they have him on oxygen. And the next person came in. And I knew every one of these people. And they're very nice people. And I appreciate all of them. And I've known many of them for years. And another friend came in and said, you've done a lot. And you've taken care of this dog. And he is an amazing dog. But it's time, Ashley. They want you to come on in and talk with them. And so I went in there. Buddy was on oxygen. And he was laying on a table covered with a blanket. And they said, "It's time." And I said, "I would like to spend some time with him." And they go, "We can keep him, okay here for a little bit. Because we can't move him because he doesn't have enough oxygen." And when I got in there, his oxygen level apparently was 60. We had done those x-rays prior. We did one x-ray, and it didn't look great. It looked like there was some sort of growth in this. It's like an additional part of the lung, and they talk about it. It's funny. It's like, us humans don't seem to have these additional parts of their lungs, but apparently dogs do. And so it was a part of a lung that you could actually, if you had to let go of it and you had to cut it out, you could. And so that was a great thing because I was thinking, okay, well, hey, that's not that bad, right? If we have to go in there and do surgery, and we talked about it, but we didn't know. You could, because of the X-ray and the ultrasound, it wasn't a CAT scan. It wasn't enough to really know. And then you really have to do a biopsy. So it could have been also pneumonia as well as fluid. And so we took the pneumonia protocol, and went that direction, thinking that might be the answer. We did another X-ray, and all this was several weeks back. But this one looked a little more cloudier and a little more problematic. And so I walk back there, and Buddy's on his oxygen tank, and there's oxygen, and it's around the snout. And he's laying there. And, it's like you take it all in. It's very surreal. And I think it's so surreal because some of it's real and some of it's not real. And what I mean by that is, yes, his body has screwed him. His body has gotten in the way of his life. His body has stopped him from continuing to live this life, which really sucks. But he's not really, when he leaves his body, he's not really dead, and he's not in that body anymore. That's not him. That's a vessel where he walked around and moved around in this society we're in. But That's not him. He's the spiritual being, right? And so when you think about somebody says it's surreal, it's because it's not real. There's parts of it, yes. We're in that room. We're in a room. We're going through this. But parts of it, even though it appears to be one way, is not that way. And as I'm sitting there through this, yes, it was very interesting. And I called up my husband and I said, hey, they're going to give us some time. He was at work. And so he had about a 35-minute drive and coming back, and they said, yeah, that'll be fine. And I spent time with Buddy. I spent time with him. I held his little hands like I always do. I always held his hands. I always held a hand until he got pissed and didn't want to hold hands anymore. He never really got pissed. He would sit in my lap for hours. Clients would be in session, and they would just see him, and he's just so super cute. He would just sit in my lap for hours. Not really moving, just hanging out. And in the last 2 years, he'd pass out. Like he would be sitting in my arms for about 1 minute and he's out. And people would laugh because he would do the head bob. Back in college, the head bob, where you didn't sleep really the night before. You're in freshman, some class or sophomore year, and you're over there doing the headbutt where you're almost like breaking your neck because you're passing out listening to this professor. You can't keep it together. Yeah, that's what he would do. He would do the head bob, and adorable. Always at the office with me. He was sleeping standing up sometimes. He got into that pattern. We went everywhere together. He flew with me. He went everywhere. And it was so surreal. And because it is surreal, because it's not real. There's parts of it that are real. And then there's parts of it that aren't. And I sat there and I was hugging him, and every time I hugged him, his heart rate would go up. And he knew I was there. He was a bit sedated, but not too sedated. They had to sedate him a little bit because he was floundering when we got in. And I had a conversation with him. I said, I love you and I care about you. Now, I had these conversations with him every other night for the last couple of weeks. I never wanted it to be like in the surreal end, I'm going to have this conversation of this depth. No, it's like we've been talking about this for a long time. There's a little bit of telepathy here. We're having this discussion, and it's, you have that and you open up, the options in life. And it was a very deep discussion, and I had it again, and I held him. And we spent, a good hour and a half together. And it was very hard to leave, even after they did the injection. And, everybody, was talking about old stories about Buddy. I mean, we had some crazy stories and some crazy stuff that happened. And there's some that were funny, and we were talking about them. But it was sad, real sad. I kissed his nose a bunch before I left, giving him hugs. One of the hardest things is carrying out his collar. It's so hard. And I even checked. I asked if I could check with the stethoscope to make sure that, yes, he had passed, and he had. But again, don't leave any stone unturned. And it was hard. And it is hard. And I remember walking out of there and talking with everybody. And it was really surreal because also I had been in that veterinary office hundreds of times. And every time there's people everywhere. People needing stuff. People waiting on stuff. Dogs, cats, all this stuff. And for the first time, there was nobody there. It was just the folks that worked there. And I knew them all. There was nobody waiting for a room. There was nobody waiting to be seen. It was just us. And that's it. And I was so upset because I didn't have that day with him. I didn't have that day to drive around and do all those things. I didn't have that day to take him around and just, do whatever. And I was sad about that. And I beat myself up a little bit. I should have done it the day before. I should have done it the day before. I should have carried him in. I should have carried him from the car in. I should have carried him from the car in. But then, you never know. I mean, maybe he would have gotten home and things would have been really bad. He would have gotten the shot and things wouldn't have gotten any better. And I remember that's when I started realizing about Dolce, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I remember having that moment with Dolce and being able to have that day. But that evening was horrible. It was scary and it was stressful. And I know it was stressful on him too. Very stressful. It was stressful on me. I mean, I wasn't the one being sick and having the problems. I was just sitting there feeling so horrible, trying to figure out what is it that I can do to change the situation. And so I realized we did get grace, even though it didn't feel like it, because it felt like it cut things too short. Unfair. But yet I had a funny feeling, and not a funny feeling, but just that feeling of knowing that unfortunately the body was going to stop working. And he didn't want it to stop working. I remember the night before, and I have all these pictures, and he's smiling, and he's happy, and he's loving hanging out. Even in the morning, before we went to the vet, we were outside hanging out on the patio, talking. He was hanging out. Good time. He was hanging out in the office. He was okay. He wanted to live. He wanted to hang out. He did not want to go. And I think that's the thing, is like he did not want to go. And I did not want him to go. But people sit there and say, oh, it was his time. No, I don't. I think for most of these kiddos, it's not their time. They don't want to go, but they have to. It's like us. It's not like we go, oh, yeah, hey, I'm done. Ready to go here. No. I mean, maybe to some degree, some of us through work and help and dedication and spiritual attainment and work will work to figure that out. But I think a lot of times it just happens to people. Things start giving out. Main organs stop working. Things like that happen. It's not that you want to leave the planet. It's just like it fucking happens, man. And so I remember leaving there, and a friend of mine had called, and another friend of mine had called, and they had told me, the staff up there had told me. And I picked out the box for the ashes. I made sure I could get one that I could open, and I made sure that I could get one that I could spread, and I made sure I could get one that I could, put into different things or whatever, if I wanted to put it into like some sort of holder or what have you, or just spread them over, I picked that out. I know that I've been sent a bill and I still have to take care of it, but I haven't felt like it today. And, I felt like this. I felt like I had to record this podcast because I think so many of you have gone through this and you haven't had an outlet. You haven't had an outlet to express yourself, to understand, to connect, to have someone that understands exactly, maybe not for every single second of what you went through, but for the most part, what you went through, what you're going through, what you're currently going through. Because what you're currently going through is hard. And, this is part one of many. Because the next podcast that I want to talk about is the coming home part. The leaving the ER. When you're leaving the ER, when you're leaving the vet's office with the collar, that's a whole nother chapter. It's another chapter, and all these things have to be discussed because this is another chapter. This is something else that we have to walk through. And it's not about, taking it lightly. I know that a lot of people have encouraged me to drink. I've really decided not, I've stopped drinking. I don't want to do that. I need to process. I need to process this. I need to accept this. I need to open arm accept this. I need to hug around it and deal with it so that I can get some peace of mind. Like, I encourage y'all too, if you're going through this, like, really watch the alcohol. Probably, if you can, don't drink. Watch the weed smoking. If you can, don't smoke. Try to think about it. How do I want to deal with this kid? If you want to call this dog, the name of your dog, buddy, child, whatever you want to say, has meant a lot to you in your life. And you owe it to yourself to process these emotions. And I know that some of you are thinking already about getting another dog, and we'll talk about that, and that's fine. It's great. But I do think there needs to be a moment in time. And your moment might be longer or shorter than others. Some moments might be 6 months. Other moments could be 3. Others could be years. Others could be weeks. It's up to you. But I think there has to be some processing and respect of emotions for yourself and for, in my case, Buddy. Insert the name of your dog here. And I hope that this has helped, because in our next podcast, I want to talk about leaving that. As you're walking out with the belongings of your dog, where are you now? If you haven't already, please check out my YouTube channel. Just go to Life Coach Ashley Burgess. Also, the website, if you'd like to get some coaching or counseling, go to ashleyberges.com. I'd love to work with you. In the meantime, if you're going through this journey, or you've been on this journey, or this is recent or has happened in the past, I commend you for all the effort that you've put in taking care of your dog/child and giving them the best life that you could. That's all that matters. We'll talk more in part 2. Don't forget to live your true life. And you've been listening to the Ashley Burgess Podcast.